Bob Woodson, such a pleasure to have you back on American Thought Leaders.
Pleased to be here again.
You know, Bob, I always love having you on. Every time I have had you on the show, you have given a hopeful outlook, even as we were discussing some of the most difficult questions of the nation. As we were talking earlier, you said it really, really beautifully. You said, we really have to think about how to win when we're dealt a losing hand. And I think there's a lot of people out there right now that are feeling that way. Like they're really not holding a winning hand, but nonetheless, there's all sorts of scenarios that you've been involved with for decades of people actually doing that.
Yeah, I've been blessed to serve people that others run away from. I proudly say that 80% of my closest friends have letters in front of their names, like X something. Ex-drug addict, ex-gangbanger. And they have, through God's grace, have been redeemed. And so what I spent my whole life examining and participating in people who have recovered from some of the most challenging circumstances that life can possibly confront someone. So it's because I've been around people who have not only survived and thrived in the face of despair, but they have some very valuable lessons to teach us about this country and about the challenges that we as individuals face. Bishop Sheen, one of my favorites, gave a speech 50 years ago. He said, America is like an eagle, that's why, that nest high in the mountains. And when the eaglets get to a certain point, they take the feathers out the nest and push them out. And the eaglets will fall to the earth. But just before it crashes, the mother will grab it and take it back up to the top. And this process is repeated until the eagle learns to fly. America is like that. God has thrust her out, and she's in a free fall. But God is going to seize her just before that fall and take her back up to the mountain until we learn to fly and soar again.
So there's a line that you said, I don't know if this was the same incident in Westchester that you just mentioned, but you basically said, there was a moment that you realized the real power is in the streets.
Well, I realized that, as I said, 80% of my closest friends are people who've experienced brokenness in their life. And their greatest challenge is how to overcome brokenness. But it was also, there's this separation, this distinction that people have been conditioned to believe that the greatest challenge is external, coming from external forces. Chuck Swindoll, Pastor Swindoll, I think summarized what I believe to be the fact is that 10% of who we are is defined by external circumstances. Your family, racism, but 90% of who you are and what you do is defined by your attitude about the 10%. What I concentrate on is helping people to understand that you have responsibility to be agents of your own uplift, regardless of circumstances. But there are powerful forces telling large groups of people, particularly blacks, that your life is defined by the external circumstance. And therefore, until those circumstances change, you can't expect to flourish. And this is a poisonous message. There's nothing more lethal than to say to people that their destiny is determined by factors that are outside.
This is a powerful idea that 90% of who you are is determined about your attitude towards that 10%. But another way of looking at it is that people could actually be denying 90% of who they are if they're purely focused on that 10%.
That is true. That's what's wrong today. There's nothing more lethal than giving people a convenient reason for their failure. It's really, and particularly in a racial context, it's really an embrace of white supremacy.
Oh.
For people who are well-meaning, to say to people that if you're engaging in self-destructive behavior, it's not your fault. It's someone else's.
so many guests I've had on the show, and frankly, sort of my own thinking evolving through what I've been reading and what I've been learning about the realities of America, both historically and the present, tell me that solutions are going to come in the grassroots, not from the top. Another thing is, there seems to be this, I guess, theme that's emerging to my eyes of this elite, you mentioned elitism, kind of elite contempt for the working classes.
Oh, yes.
And let's take a moment just to discuss that. I can see you agree wholly, but in so many different areas.
No, you really zeroed in on the problem. Someone said that when, I think it was Bill Bennett many years ago, he says that when sort of elites on the left look at poor people and black people, they see a sea of victims. And people on the right see a sea of aliens. and that many people on the right believe that if these people will only mirror our values, that somehow because you have money and education, that your values are superior to those who are poor. And therefore, if only these poor people would just do what we do, then they would be fine. There's an old African proverb that when bull elephants fight, the grass always loses. And the poor are the net losers for this gladiatorial debate between the left and the right. That's why, because what is missing in that is trust. And when I meet with low-income people, I do so with the utmost respect, and therefore it engenders trust. But the problem facing America, as you pointed out, is elitism.
So let's bring things back to our theme that we started here, basically how to win, something that you've been very, very successful with, and many of these leaders, how to win getting really a losing hand.
Yeah.
And I think that this whole realm that we just covered, right, it's sometimes hard to imagine how to escape out of, let's say, a lot of folly around us in society.
Well, one of the things that we need to do, and that we're promoting at the center, is there needs to be a center for the study of resilience. We just need to have some place where all scholars and all that we ever do is look for examples of success. We have a young lady, for instance, right now, Camilla Bradley from Denver. She was raised one of 3 children under very tough circumstances, very, very difficult circumstances. I won't go into detail about her personal life. But no one in her family ever graduated high school. She was homeless at one point while she was in school. She moved 9 times when she was in high school. But she said she made sure that she stayed the same high school because there was a Christian program, Colorado Uplift, that provided a Christian mentor to her that helped anchor her in the midst of the confusion in her life. And part of the mentoring program, they took them on a helicopter ride over Denver. And she got so turned on with flight that when she graduated from high school and attended college to become a pilot, she graduated at the top of her class from college, and at 23 years old is a certified flight instructor trying to get a job in an airlines. But she says she, as a black woman, she does not want to be a check mark on a diversity schedule because it's insulting to all the hard work that she has done to achieve what she did. She doesn't even like to share her story of overcoming the odds. But she reluctantly did so with us so she can inspire other young people. Well, there are hundreds of stories of redemption and restoration like this around the country. But you won't find it unless you go looking for it.